All right. Elden Ring Nightreign. I finally got to play the network test. We only got to do one network test. It's probably only going to be the one that we will have done, simply because the network test times are not particularly friendly for EU. And the very first network test was a complete fail because we weren't able to play the entire time. Now, you can argue like, well, that's the purpose of network tests. It's like, I don't know. I feel like the purpose of the network test is to actually test what you're seeing on screen right now, how players interact with it, the actual latency of the game and all that stuff, rather than server stress testing. So yeah, the very first one, little bit of a miss, but and the biggest concern with that is that it was a bit of a miss, and people that were at the Vegas event complained that over there it was also very, very rough, and that was a much more controlled environment. So From Software needs to clamp down on their server tech and their network code. That I feel they definitely need to have a look at. But other than that, there's a little bit of latency, a little bit of a latency jank that we're kind of used to in Elden Ring multiplayer. The thing is, whereas in the original Elden Ring, the multiplayer is just something that you do for fun, or for some people, it is a part of their core experience. But you can definitely be like, well, the main part of the experience of Elden Ring is that single player. So the multiplayer jank that it ends up having is not as big of a deal. Whereas in this game, you're in multiplayer the whole time. So therefore, it is a little bit more problematic, and I do feel that their netcode needs to improve a little bit, because I think it's going to be rough to ask people to just accept netcode jank when your whole game is based in multiplayer. That'd be number one, because it's like, besides the server issues, you take those away, right? You take the server issues away, you're still dealing with a little bit of latency, which anybody who's ever played Elden Ring or any of the other Souls games in multiplayer will be familiar with. You know that the whole thing where you swing and you hit the mob, and the mob doesn't respond immediately as when you're playing in single player. It takes them like a couple of milliseconds to go like, you hit me. And the problem is, sometimes the mob might be midway through an animation and you're trying to cancel that, and because of that little extra bit of latency, you're still going to get hit. Whereas if you're playing in single player, you're going to be able to cancel that out. So one of the biggest issues I think this game is going to have is its netcode. I hope that From Software is able to figure that stuff out, because otherwise we're just dealing with the usual Elden Ring jank. Now, is that a deal breaker? For me personally, no, because I am used to that whenever I do end up doing any multiplayer in an Elden Ring game. So it's not a deal breaker for me, but it might be a deal breaker for a lot of people, because this is very much a multiplayer dedicated game. Now, can you solo things? Yes, but we didn't get to test that in the network code, which I know that's going to be something that a lot of people are going to be curious about. How does it work when you're soloing, all that stuff. For the network test, we always had matchmaking on. Now, there is a password system, so if you want to play with friends, you put in a unique password, and all your friends put in the same unique password, and you'll be able to get together. I'm not sure if there's like a more convenient way of doing things in the final version of the game, but the one that we had the passcode, and then it also had the thing where you could have, is it squad codes or group codes, whatever it is. I can't log in to see the exact name of it, but you could have like up to 5. So if you have like a bunch of different groups of enemies, or maybe you have like streamer groups or whatever, you can probably put those in there, and it will populate the world with stuff from those people, very much in the same way that you can do that in Elden Ring, and in a lot of the Souls games and all that stuff. We kind of know how that works. The network infrastructure systems are pretty much all the same. So let's talk a little bit about the visuals. I mean, this is Elden Ring. It's straight up, it's literally Elden Ring. It's even some of the same assets. So visually, if you liked Elden Ring, you're going to dig this. It looks good, looks fine. No real big complaints. One of the things that I would say is that the performance is not all there quite yet, simply due to the fact that this game is way faster paced. And I kind of feel like that causes a couple of performance hiccups, because I was playing in performance mode on a standard PS5, because I don't have a PS5 Pro, I don't have an Xbox, and I have none of that stuff. And in performance mode, I saw quite a few hiccups in my frame rate. Now, the footage you guys are watching was like my last run as Birdman. So you might notice some stuff, you might not. I didn't really tweak any settings or anything. I just like performance mode, go, boom, done. But, you know, I kind of feel like performance is something that they can like tweak and improve a little bit here and there. I don't think that's going to be a deal breaker either. But yeah, it's the little things, right? You got a little bit of jank in the netcode, and then if they can't tweak down that performance, you're going to get a little bit of that in there as well. But again, not really a big deal. In terms of animations, really good, really solid. You know, again, it's Elden Ring. The difference is you have more stylish attacks. Now, I only played 2 of the characters. There were 4 characters available in this network test. You had the Wilder, which is kind of like the default first bro that you get. He's got a parry buckler and a sword, but the equipment that they come equipped with doesn't really matter because you can equip anything on them. But each of them does have stats, so they will be more or less efficient depending on the things that you equip on them. So you have the Wilder, standard guy. You have the Birdman, which is kind of like tanky boy. You have the Duchess, which feels like a roguish type of character. I don't know. I didn't play Duchess. I only played Wilder and Birdman because those are the 2 closest archetypes of the stuff that I usually tend to play. And then there's also the Recluse, which is like this caster that has a bunch of stuff. If you guys watch some of the streamers that got to go to the event, they'll tell you all about how you suck up 3 different things and then you get to cast a special spell with the Recluse. I didn't really play those 2 because of the limited nature of the network test. I'm like, I want to play 2 archetypes that I'm comfortable with so that I can actually explore the game as much as possible. So what are the abilities of the archetypes that I did play with? So the Wilder, really, really cool, has like this hook shot thing. You can sling, grapple onto enemies. If the enemy's big, you pull yourself towards the enemy. Enemy is small, you pull the enemy towards you. Then it has like a follow-up attack. You can also do a jumping attack after it, and it becomes like a repositioning type of thing, which is like lots and lots of movement, really, really good. And then he's got an ultimate, which is like the pile driver. What is it called in the... I think the closest thing that we get to see is the one that was in Bloodborne. You guys remember the big pile driver thing we had in Bloodborne where you get like chunk and then you get one of those, except it explodes and it is brutal. And it's really cool because pretty much if you charge it up all the way, you always get a stun on bosses. So that makes him a really, really powerful character if you're able to land that. Now, when I played Wilder, I landed that on bosses. It was an absolute blast. I friggin' loved it. As a matter of fact, do we have anything here of me playing it? No, this was my second... Yeah, here's the Wilder. So, I don't know if I can find like a boss fight. Yeah, I probably used it right at the beginning here on the dragon, if I remember correctly. It's just trying to find this footage all of a sudden. But yeah, Wilder has that big AoE, explosions, fun times. The Birdman has like a tornado thing, which works kind of like CC against small monsters. So small monsters just get yeeted into the air whenever Birdman uses that. And then he has his ultimate, and his ultimate is the bee's knees. So what the ultimate for this character does is you jump up into the air, and then you slam down, and then you can keep the button pressed. And while you're keeping the button pressed, your allies are shielded from damage. I don't know if it's just like you're completely immune to everything, or you get to block like once or twice or whatever, but you're just giving like big defenses to your allies so they can just go ham. Usually I'd go up to a boss, slam that sucker down, and then I keep pressing it, and the allies just like R1 spam, do all of their things. They don't even care about survivability because they're going to be fine because of the shielding. So that's really cool. And your character is also, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think your character is also pretty much immune to damage while you're doing that, which is pretty friggin' sweet. But yeah, these are 2 abilities. They're constantly recharging. You're constantly using them. Except for maybe the Wilder Big Blast thing. That takes a little bit longer to recharge because it's also really powerful because it guarantees a stun on a boss. So that's really good. But yeah, assuming that all players are playing their archetypes to the best of their abilities, these are kind of like the abilities that you have to play around with, and it's pretty much fun times. Now, the thing is, your performance is going to be dictated by how kind of like lucky you are in drops, because you do need to get a little bit lucky in drops. Because the idea is you get dropped into the thing, as you guys probably are already aware, you get dropped into a level, which is called Limveld, if I'm not mistaken. You get dropped into the level, and then there's like a wall that's constantly encroaching, kind of like Fortnite, Battle Royale, that type of thing. And you're trying to kill as many monsters as possible, as many mobs as possible, as you are running away from the firewall. And you also want to kill as many bosses as possible, like you see here, Crucible Knight. And whenever you kill a boss, what happens is that boss drops something, and you get to choose from 3 power-ups. It can be a weapon, can be a passive ability, can be something else. And there's also other items spread throughout the terrain, like find scarabs. The scarabs drop amulets and stuff. So you'll want to kill as many things as possible, as fast as possible, while you're outrunning this encroaching wall of death. Now, you don't instantly die if you get hit by the nasty rain. What happens is you start taking damage. But it's very little. It's a little dot. It does increase over time. Over time, as in when the game passes, the rain intensifies or whatever it is, and then it deals a little bit more damage, because for a while during this run, I had so much regen on my character, I could actually just stay in the rain and not take any damage. But then it intensified, and then I wasn't able to do that anymore. So it also increases in damage and all of that. But yeah, the idea is you do all of this, and then eventually when the circle gets to its smallest point, boss spawns, kill that boss. That opens up the whole map again. Monsters respawn in this version, because I had heard rumors that monsters weren't supposed to respawn, so they're supposed to go to different places. But I'm pretty sure that on a couple of runs, we did the same monsters twice, the same boss fights twice. Because some of the boss fights are like at certain points of the map, and they're just there. Like the one that I remember was the flaming chariots thing. That always seemed to just be there. So that was just something that we did twice in one of the runs. So I'm pretty sure you can keep doing those. No biggie. But yeah. And then once again, the circle expands. You go and you collect more EXP. You level up. You grab items and upgrades and all of that stuff. Then the circle collapses again. You fight another boss. These bosses are random. And then finally, after you defeat that boss, you get sent to a place where you can kind of like rest, buy a few consumables, and upgrade weapons if you happen to have found any shards and stuff like that. And then you get to face off against the final boss, which in our case was like the Cerberus-looking dog thing. And yeah, that's kind of like the overall gameplay loop. After that, you either win or you lose. Now, when players die, you can resurrect them by attacking them. It's pretty simple. You can even lock onto them to help you with the attacking. But obviously that's going to be risky, because if they died, there's probably a boss there or something that's tough, kicking your ass, and you have to try and resurrect them. If everybody dies, obviously you fail. If before the final boss, you get to the final boss, if people are dying, you can kind of like resurrect, even if you don't resurrect them. I'm not sure what the limitations are on that, because this didn't happen too many times. But you're able to just keep coming back and keep progressing, because ultimately the penalty is you're taking too long to kill stuff if people are dying. And therefore, you're going to be way weaker by the time you get to the final boss. So I don't know if there's actually any limitations on the amount of times that you can die and all of that stuff. In terms of leveling up, you don't really choose your stats. You just go up to a bonfire and go like, level me up. And it just increases your stats automatically. Now, the thing about items that you pick up along the way is that each item will have like its own special ability in case you actually want to use it. But you should be picking up items even if you're not using them, because most of them also will have a passive ability. So like, for instance, in one of the runs, I picked up this axe that made it so that whenever enemies died, I would gain a little bit of health. And even when I wasn't using it, I noticed that I was still getting it. So yeah, pretty much the passive effects seem to always work, regardless of whether or not you have the weapon equipped. So you should always fill up the 6 slots of your inventory with stuff, even if you are not using that stuff, because you get the benefits of the passives and whatnot. So that's the way that goes. And again, that's one of those things where it's going to change based on runs. How effective you're going to be is based on, oh, what were the passives that I got from this boss? What were the weapons that I was able to get from this boss or from this chest or whatever? And based on that, that dictates how effective you are going to be. And also based on how well you can play your archetype, but your gear plays a massive role in how good you can be, which is why we were struggling. Like in this boss fight, we were struggling big time because we just didn't have that much damage. And then we ended up not really winning this run because we whiffed it at the very end. Now, in terms of how fun it is, which I think is probably one of the most important things, how fun is it to play? I thought it was really fun. It's also very chaotic. So don't expect to just like jump in and have a blast on your first run, because it's going to feel very hectic. The pacing of the game is completely different, because when you're playing Elden Ring, you're used to the being very methodical. You're going slowly. I mean, depending on the type of player, of course. Some players are speedrunners, they go fast or whatever. But I think that a majority of people playing Elden Ring, you're going methodically, you're playing slowly, you're killing mobs one by one, like, you know, learning the way, and then eventually you start getting a little bit more comfortable. In here, it's not like that. You jump in, go, 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 kill everything as fast as possible, keep running, no fall damage, super sprint. You have a super sprint where you can just like run through the map almost at torrent-like speeds. And it's just like go, 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 go. From the moment you land to the moment it ends, it's go, 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 go. You got to go fast, got to kill stuff fast, got to avoid the rain, got to kill bosses, got to level up, got to get things fast. And, you know, it's going to take, I feel like, a long while. For me, at least, it's going to take a long while to get used to the inventory management. One of the things that I've noticed, and I don't know if this is because the people that I was playing with, which is people from chat, by the way, absolute goats, the Iron Breakers coming in, hard carrying me on a lot of these fights. But I feel like I held my own on quite a few of them as well. But I think that you guys probably played the previous test as well. And this was like the first one that I got to play. And, you know, one of the things that I found myself doing often was like, I was reading through and figuring out, okay, so the passive on this one's this, the passive on this one's that. And they're like in Narnia already. The two people that are with me, they're like already in Narnia and the next waypoint, killing the next boss. And oftentimes I did feel a little bit like a third wheel, because I would get to a boss and they would already be engaging it and stuff. But I feel like that is one of those things that is going to improve over time as I become more familiar, and I can just glance at that and be like, yeah, I want this. Yeah, I don't want this. But it is going to have an adaptation period throughout which you're going to feel like you're lagging behind. Now, one of the potential problems that I see with this is that somebody who comes into the game later and is not up to date into all the systems, playing with randoms is probably going to be very, very frustrating. Because it's going to be frustrating for the randoms, because they're going to want that person, the third person, to be really good. And, you know, the person's not going to be up to snuff. So they might be like, oh, what the hell? And then for the person, because they're trying to learn and everybody's just like, you know, moving forward super fast. Now, I happen to be streamer content creator. I don't have that problem, because usually people in the community are more than happy to play with me, and that's usually not a big issue. Nobody really cares that much. But yeah, I think it's going to be tough if you're not playing on a pre-made group with friends to come into this game late. But if you're starting at the very beginning, I think that it's going to be a pretty fun experience. Like, I thought it was pretty fun. I don't know how the lasting power is going to feel, because it depends on level diversity, how much levels are there going to be, how much bosses. I think they said there's going to be like 8 Night Lord bosses or whatever it is, and maybe like a super final one or something. But the diversity is what's going to make or break the game. Because like some of the random events that happen throughout the runs, those were fun. Like Margit invading, that's a really fun thing. Whenever you're just playing the game and suddenly Margit shows up, invades the game, and now there's a boss fight out of nowhere. And it can be at a time where you're good, or it can be at a time where it's like, oh, there was another boss here. Oh, this is actually a problem. Uh-oh. So, you know, the randomness of it is kind of cool. But other than the Margit invasion, there was not that much randomness that I've personally noticed during the network test. So those are the things that I feel are going to need to be spiced up for the final game in order to maintain runs fresh. Because if you're not keeping things fresh, then players are going to get bored really fast. And it's, you know, that's the thing. Now, I've seen a lot of people compare this to a live service game. I don't think this is a live service game. They've explained multiple times. There's not going to be microtransactions. It's going to be $40. And that's it for this multiplayer experience. I think that is going to be worth it, assuming that there's enough content. So I can't say that, oh yeah, it's absolutely going to be worth it. I'm saying if there's enough content there, I think it will be worth it, because it is fun. even with, like I said, the multiplayer jank and all of that stuff, it is still very fun. I find it very fun because of the random nature of the items that you pick up. You'll find yourself using weapons that maybe you usually haven't used in Elden Ring, and I think that that is cool. Because usually in Elden Ring, in order for you to use a weapon, you need to dedicate a whole ass build to it. Whereas in here, it's like, nope, I have this build, this is what I got, this weapon looks good, I'm using this weapon. You'll be able to experience like different move sets. It's very experimental, and I think it's cool. I think it's fun that From Software is doing these experimental things. Because things can get stale if you're doing the same old. And I think that From Software excels when they're trying out new things. Now, is it going to work in the final game or not? I don't know. I'll have to check it out. But I'll tell you what, now that I've played it, I have a lot more faith in it. But like I said, the first 2-3 times you play are going to feel very hectic, very disorienting, very weird. But then you're going to start getting into a rhythm. And as you get into the rhythm, things start feeling really fun. At least that was the case for me. But again, I was playing with Iron Breakers. So, you know, this is going to be players that follow the Elden Ring scene, players that watch my videos and all of this stuff. So they're all going to be, let's just say, a cut above your average player that maybe has no idea what they're doing, right? So that was a good experience for me. It was fun. I don't have any like major complaints besides the netcode stuff and the concerns that I have about server stability and whatnot. Yeah, I thought it was fun, but yeah, that's pretty much it. This is gonna end up being a YouTube video on the channel of my initial impressions on Elden Ring Nightreign. Yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like, subscribe, bell notification icon, all that jazz.